Chapter 13. New Beginnings. The sun was just beginning to rise over the village of Konoha, casting a soft, warm light across the rooftops. It was early, and the streets were still quiet, but the training grounds were already alive with the sounds of kunai cutting through the air, chakra-infused strikes hitting targets, and the steady rhythm of footsteps as Naruko moved across the field. It had been months since the jutsu had permanently transformed her, and while the grief of losing her former self still lingered in the background of her thoughts, something had shifted inside her. The weight that had once pressed down on her every moment had begun to lift, replaced by a sense of acceptance, of quiet determination to make the most of her new life. She had a new body now, but she was still a ninja, still strong, still capable, still driven by the same desire to protect her friends and her village. Naruko stood at the center of the training ground, her long blonde hair tied back in a high ponytail to keep it out of her face. She wore a modified version of her old combat gear, designed to fit her new form. Sleek, practical, but undeniably feminine. Her body moved with a grace she hadn't possessed before, her movements fluid and precise as she practiced a series of taijutsu strikes against a wooden training dummy. It hadn't been easy at first. The transition from her old body to this one had been disorienting, frustrating. She had spent weeks trying to adjust to the differences in her strength, her speed, her center of gravity. But over time, she had learned to adapt, to use her new form to her advantage. Her body was smaller now, lighter, more agile. She didn't have the raw power she used to, but what she lacked in brute strength, she made up for in speed and precision. She could move faster, strike quicker, dodge attacks with a fluidity that had once been beyond her reach. Her chakra control, too, had improved, something Tsunade had pointed out during one of their training sessions. The smaller frame allowed her to focus her chakra more efficiently, to channel it with greater finesse. And then there were the skills she had begun to develop under Ino's guidance. Skills she never would have considered before the transformation. Ino had been teaching her the Yamanaka clan's mind techniques, and while they didn't come naturally to Naruko, she had found that her new body was more attuned to the delicate, intricate nature of the jutsu. It was a different kind of power, a different kind of strength, but it was strength all the same. As Naruko completed her final strike, the wooden dummy splintered with a satisfying crack. She stepped back, breathing heavily but feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. This was her body now, and she was learning to master it. Not bad, not bad. Naruko, a familiar voice called out from behind her. Naruko turned to see Ino approaching, a playful smirk tugging at the corners of her lips. She was dressed in her usual combat gear, her long blonde hair pulled up in a high ponytail that matched Naruko's own. "You've been practicing," Ino said as she came to stand beside her. Naruko wiped the sweat from her brow with the back of her hand, grinning. Yeah. Well, I've had a pretty good teacher," Ino chuckled, crossing her arms as she surveyed the training ground. "You're getting faster, and your chakra control has improved a lot. I can see it in your movements." Naruko felt a surge of pride at Ino's words. She had been working hard, pushing herself to adapt, to excel, and it was paying off. She could feel it in her body, in the way she moved, in the way her chakra flowed more naturally through her. Thanks, Naruko said, her grin widening. "I feel better, stronger." Ino's expression softened, and she reached out to place a hand on Naruko's shoulder. "You are stronger, Naruko. You've come a long way." Naruko's heart swelled at Ino's words. There had been a time, not so long ago, when she had doubted herself, doubted whether she could ever be as strong, as capable, as she had been before the transformation. But now, standing here with Ino, hearing the pride in her friend's voice, she felt a sense of validation, of accomplishment. "I couldn't have done it without you," Naruko said, her voice quiet but sincere. Ino smiled, her eyes warm. "We're a team, remember? We help each other." Naruko nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for Ino's unwavering support. Their bond had grown stronger over the past few months, forged in the fires of shared struggle and mutual understanding. Ino had been there for her every step of the way, offering guidance, friendship, and, most importantly, acceptance. Naruko didn't know what she would have done without her. As the weeks passed, Naruko continued to thrive. She took on more missions, her confidence growing with each successful outing. At first, there had been some hesitation from her teammates, uncertainty about how Naruko would perform in her new form. But she had quickly proven herself, demonstrating time and again that she was just as capable, just as skilled, as she had been before. Her friends had noticed the change in her, too. Sakura, in particular, had been supportive, offering encouragement and advice whenever Naruko needed it. She had even helped Naruko adjust to the more practical aspects of her new life, things that, as a guy, Naruko had never had to think about. Things like clothes, hair care, and makeup. At first, Naruko had been resistant to the idea, but over time, she had come to appreciate the little tips and tricks Sakura had shared with her. It wasn't about vanity, it was about feeling comfortable in her own skin. And then there was Sasuke. Naruko had been unsure how Sasuke would react to the new her. Their relationship had always been complex, rivalry mixed with friendship, respect mingled with frustration. But when they had met for the first time after the transformation, Sasuke had looked at her with the same cool, detached expression he always had. "You're still an idiot," he had said, his tone as blunt as ever. But there had been a flicker of something else in his eyes, something like acceptance. It had been enough. One evening, after a particularly grueling mission, Naruko and Ino found themselves sitting on the roof of their apartment, watching the sun set over the village. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, the last rays of sunlight casting long shadows across the rooftops. Naruko leaned back, resting her weight on her hands as she stared up at the sky. It was peaceful, the kind of quiet that made her feel like everything was going to be okay. Ino sat beside her, her legs crossed as she sipped from a cup of tea. They had fallen into an easy routine over the past few months, training together, working together, and, in moments like this, simply enjoying each other's company. "I never thought I'd get used to this," Naruko said after a while, her voice soft. Ino glanced over at her, raising an eyebrow. "Used to what?" Naruko gestured vaguely at herself, her lips quirking into a small smile. This, being me. I mean, I'm still figuring some of it out, but it doesn't feel as weird as it used to." Ino smiled, setting her cup down beside her. "That's because you've grown into it. You've made this new life your own." Naruko thought about that for a moment, letting Ino's words sink in. She had grown into it, hadn't she? Somewhere along the way, she had stopped thinking of herself as Naruto, the boy who had been turned into someone else. Now, she was Naruko, a Kunoichi, a ninja, and, most importantly, herself. There were still moments when she missed her old self, when she longed for the simplicity of being Naruto Uzumaki. the boy who had dreamed of becoming Hokage, who had fought so hard to be recognized. But those moments were fewer and farther between now. She was forging a new path, a new identity, and it felt right. It felt like she was finally beginning to understand who she was meant to be. I guess I have, Naruko said, her smile softening. It's just weird sometimes. Ino chuckled, nudging her playfully with her elbow. Life's always weird, Naruko. But that's what makes it interesting. Naruko laughed, the sound light and free. Yeah, I guess you're right. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky darkening into shades of deep blue and purple. The stars were just beginning to appear, twinkling faintly in the fading light. I'm glad you're here. I'm Ino, Naruko said quietly after a long pause. I I don't think I could have done this without you. Ino's expression softened, and she reached out to take Naruko's hand, squeezing it gently. You would have figured it out. Naruko, you're stronger than you think. But I'm glad I could be here for you. Naruko squeezed her hand back, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and affection for the woman sitting beside her. Ino had been her rock through all of this, her constant source of support and encouragement. Their bond had grown stronger than Naruko ever could have imagined, and she was grateful for it every day. You're a good friend. I'm Ino, Naruko said, her voice filled with sincerity. Ino smiled, her eyes shining in the fading light. So are you, Naruko. So are you. As the weeks turned into months, Naruko continued to carve out her place in the village as a kunoichi. She took on more missions, trained harder than ever, and honed her skills with a determination that surprised even her. She was no longer just Naruto Uzumaki, the boy who had dreamed of becoming Hokage. She was Naruko, a strong, capable ninja in her own right. Her friends accepted her for who she was, and, over time, the village did too. There were still moments of uncertainty, still moments when she felt like she didn't quite fit into the world the way she used to. But those moments were becoming rarer, and each day, she felt more at peace with herself, more confident in the person she had become. Her relationship with Ino deepened as well. They were inseparable now, their bond forged through shared experiences and mutual understanding. Ino had become more than just a friend to Naruko. She was family, a sister in all but blood. They trained together, laughed together, and supported each other through the ups and downs of life as Kunoichi. Naruko was finding her place in the world, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged. One evening, as Naruko lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. It had been a long, difficult journey to get to this point, but she had made it. She had found her way through the darkness, through the uncertainty, and had come out the other side stronger, more sure of herself. She wasn't Naruto anymore, but that was okay. She was Naruko, and she was exactly where she was meant to be.